Good evening, everybody, and welcome again to the Bluff Creek Project podcast. I'm your host, Kipp Morrill, and I'm also joined by my co-host in the wonderful state of Iowa, Mr. Tate Hieronymus. Tate, how you doing, buddy?
Great. How are you, Kipp?
I can't complain. Got my health. This quarantine thing has me overeating, oversleeping, overthinking, overdrinking. So I don't know. I think I'm doing okay. Life could be a lot worse. What about you?
I kind of enjoy it. I'm not much of a people person anyway, so being at home, I love it.
See, I'm not much of a people person either. I'm pretty shy. I don't really like to get out much. And, you know me.
Nope.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a big lie. Hey, so anyways, I'm pretty stoked. This is actually our fourth podcast. And so, of course, we started the fourth one. We started out and we had some really good conversations. We had Robert Leiterman and Rowdy Kelly, which was awesome. We followed it up by having Jamie Wayne on, which was great. And then we had Ian Carton last week. And I got to tell you, I am really super stoked to have our guest on tonight. I'm going to tell you that he's probably one of my biggest mentors of coming in and learning about Bigfooting, and actually introduced me brought me on my first expedition. And he just so happens to be probably one of the nicest, most generous, wonderful people that you'll ever meet. And he's actually one of my best friends. And so, folks, I'm super stoked to introduce Mr. Bart Cutino on the show. Bart, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Honored.
Awesome. And so, I want to kick this off. Bart, you know what? I know all about you. I know you're an amazing cook, amazing chef. You got a beautiful family. I know you've been squatching for a lot of years, but I'm just curious if you can just tell folks, like, how did you get started in the whole Bigfoot madness thing? Why?
I think we always joke. I think that I fell on my head as a kid because growing up here in Monterey, California, I was for some reason I was so contrarian. I was Miami Dolphins, Toronto Blue Jays, and for some reason, I just embraced the whole Bigfoot phenomenon. And I think my older brother had a passive interest, and my cousin as well. That actually lives by you now, Kipp. And I eventually went on, it was years and years, and I just knew a lot of, the history, followed it, had all the books, John Green, everything, And then finally took that next step. We get those invisible chains in life, as I like to say. And at 28 years old, I finally got them off and went on first BFRO expedition. And, it was just fortunate. It was the right people. Hit it off with Moneymaker, Bobo. I mean, these guys, Leiterman is, all time. I just was lucky. I was with just some of the best initially, and those friendships blossomed immediately. And it was just, it was great. It was something, though, it was interesting. And we'll talk about that, but it was just something that, as much as I was into it, I never fully believed that they are right. I could never fully fathom how many people I talked to until I saw it with my own eyes. And once that happens, it changes you. And a lot of things changed. But yeah, and that's been about 17 years since I jumped in the field now.
Wow. So I got to ask, it's one of our first questions we ask. October 20th, 1967, two cowboys riding up a creek in the Six Rivers National Forest, and they came across something. Was it real? Was it somebody in a costume? What do you think?
I knew I suspected you were going to hit me off with this one. I knew it. This one's a little, it's interesting. Let me just say this. I believe more that what the subject is possibly a genuine Bigfoot than I believe it's a hoax. Am I 100% convinced it's a Bigfoot? Or would I be surprised? This is the best way to say it. Would I be surprised tomorrow if some kind of revelation, came out? And no, I wouldn't be surprised. I've always thought it can go either way. I've been fortunate enough I've known Gimlin since the first day I get in the field. I was with Bob Gimlin, and he's been a friend for 17 years. Love the guy. I mean, he comes to my expeditions in Washington just to see us. I mean, he's great. And, but, you know, we weren't just like when my experience is, if someone wasn't standing with me that day, I wasn't standing with them. I am impressed what's in the footage, all the work you guys have done, Leiterman, Stroofer, all of you guys over at the site. And, you know, I don't know if we'll ever know for sure. It's fascinating because there's been nothing close like it, you know, as far as footage wise. I mean, I've even got footage and it's nowhere near. You know, I just wish if they were had a thermal imager in their hand, the ironic thing is from that distance that she was, we would know the answer. But we may never know, you know, until this thing is done. I do think that they will be proven to be real. I mean, they're out there. I've seen them. I think it's a matter of time. I'm frustrated that it hasn't happened, but I would say about, if you were to answer your question, I'd say about 6 on some bad weeks, maybe 50-50, 60-40. Yeah. And sometimes as much as 80-20, but not 100%.
Well, I do know one thing that you are 100% sure about. And I think it was, you were at a place called Bumping Lake and you had an experience that literally changed you from being a believer to a knower. Does that kind of sum it up?
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was surreal. I mean, it was completely unexpected. Actually the first time that I had gone to Washington, I'd been there once before on visiting somebody, but it was the first time I'd actually gone anything Bigfoot related, 07. And I road trip with Bobo and Yamarone, and we went overnight, went up there, Washington, and up there 3-4 days. Cliff, bunch of them were there. Gimlin was there for part of the time. A lot of the old Washington people, and they had a lot of activity there. I mean, that was like a hot area. And you know, this is Northern Cascades, east of Rainier, biggest lake east of Rainier, and has a big history. And it was more. I remember at that time, it was more an actual social gathering, more so than an actual research one. But we were there for both purposes, and it was just crazy. It happened on the third night, and I'd been in Seattle and Marysville all day, came back, and actually was watching Gimlin's camp because he had to head back for that night. And it happened around midnight. Totally unexpected.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Bart, so there you were in Bumping, and understand that it was kind of a social gathering, and you guys were actually doing a little research, but actually just kind of hanging out, having some fun, getting to hang out with each other, and you're watching Bob Gimlin's camp. And so there you are that night. So what happened?
So it was about midnight. Had nothing happened the whole trip. You know, the most beautiful barred owl calls I've ever heard in my life, and I've been everywhere. But that was it. And I grabbed Cliff's thermal. At that time, we were using these. They were called X200 XPs. They were made by L3, and they were, you know, average units, but they didn't record by themselves. You know, it was, to set up that recording was just a nightmare. Now we press a button, it goes on an SD card, it's done, you know. But actually it was crazy. I picked up a thermal imager, walked back, relieved myself, heard something pitch black, maybe 100 yards back to camp, heard something step branch break and felt like a presence there. And I kind of moseyed on back. Said, hey, Cliff, let me check out the therm. And, you know, he hadn't set him up for the night yet anyways. And I had the handheld. I walked down, and it was just, in a nutshell, I looked and I thought, oh, my God. Oh, that's one of the girls trying to relieve herself behind the tree, you know, because you just see about 10% of the subject, you know, behind the tree, and just some knees and a head. And then kind of this right and left looking at me from behind the tree, poking this head out. And it was only seconds. I mean, I see this thing step out. So it's, you know, it's left arm, left shoulder was actually be facing me. And you just see from head to toe from the side. I mean, immediately you kind of know what it was. And long story short, dropped on all fours, but knees down. A lot of fast transitioning on the ground. I mean, there's a lot of things I picked up, but there's a lot I you know, you miss because your brain can only, you know, capture so much. But I mean, this thing, digging motions on the ground. I was trying to get Cliff's attention. I mean, I was just surreal, and I'm trying to Cliff, snapping my fingers, trying to get his attention. And there's 14 other people talking totally oblivious. No campfire, but there's ambient light from a couple lanterns. Everybody's talking, playing guitar, whatever. And this thing, not focused on them. It's focused on me. And it's about 50 yards back behind the biggest tree. I mean, just dug in like a tick. You'd never know it was there without a thermal, which is crazy. And basically, I saw this thing at one point when it was on the ground, put its hand up and looked like it was blocking. It looked like the like I'm putting a thermal imager at it, which picks up IR. It doesn't give off infrared radiation, right? And this thing it's got, you just see this hand up, you splayed hand, 5 digits. It was years later I figured out what that was, and it was blocking the ambient light that was coming from the lanterns that were in camp to try to discern me better from that position. And I think I started out about 50 yards and I creeped my way up to 32 yards. And the last minute and a half, 2 minutes I watched this thing, it was just unbelievable because it was just stationary, like just trying to blend in. And from the calves north, from the back, everything. I mean, I can see it from head to toe. And it was just standing there, not moving a muscle, and to describe it, really big in the upper extremities, big hands, long arms, big broad shoulders, like you guys would expect one to probably look like. No neck, unless the neck, but the head may have been sunken in. The head was smaller than I thought, actually, and not so much conical, more round, but it may have been sunken in from the side, and I just couldn't see that from that angle. But this thing, it was amazing because the hardest thing I think I've ever done is take that imager off my eye. And I'm just running back and I'm just shouting obscenities at Cliff, and he knows something. He's just, oh God, right away. I mean, he reacted as quick as he could, and he got that stuff set up. And I mean, literally 4 minutes. I mean, he was set, and everyone was just, kind of flipping lights on, walking back. It wasn't their fault. They didn't know what was going on. And Cliff, I was just standing there just, oh my God. And Cliff runs back there, and mind you, back then, like I was talking about recording, we used to wear a bicycle helmet. You'd put the thermal on top. You had the viewers up by your eyes, which I couldn't stand. And you had you carried this heavy backpack in front of you, and it had like a marine battery, and it's just, and then the proprietary cord. I mean, it was just a disaster. You almost had to walk somebody like a elderly person, or else there's no depth perception. You trip and fall. Cliff ran back, and he was back there for 5 minutes, and my heart's just jumping. I'm just like, gotta get it. He's got to get it. And he came back kind of shaking his head. And then we thought it was over for the night. The whole thing was surreal, but it wasn't over. We had them come around the camp again at night. Multiple people heard him. Bobo, I think, got Bluff charged later in the night when he's trying to use the bathroom. It was just a weird night. We would just hear them walking. It was dumping rain, 3 a.m. The whole experience it also kind of, it wasn't how I would have imagined the romanticized version. If I ever get to see one, this is what it's going to be. And that's what I think also kind of made it so surreal. And it's kind of not, it's not as personal seeing one through a thermal imager. It's almost like there's a layer there. It's not, I imagine it would be very differently seeing one during the day, but it was so damn definitive. And really the jaw-dropping part was later. Paul Graves, there's a friend there, he's 6'3", 170, he's wearing the beanie, all the winter clothing, and he walks back there, and it was just the realization, because it's hard to gauge the size. I wouldn't be able to tell you how tall was that, or how, unless I saw him. And once I saw him, I realized, oh my God, I mean, it was about a half foot taller than him, so call it 6'9", 7 maybe, but the body, maybe 475, maybe as much as 5, with 2/3 upstairs. Legs, almost like thinner legs. Like it was almost like that hourglass body that we kind of talk about a little bit. So, and you could see the hair patches, even with that 160-100 resolution on that thermal from that distance, you could see the deviations in the hair patterns, the heat deviations, which was just remarkable. So that whole incident there, wow. I mean, it also changed the way that I saw, like the way that we research. It changed the way that I think. It changed the way, because I realized at that point, okay, I'm I know enough to be dangerous because I've had some of the greatest guys that have taught me over the years, but I'm not an expert tracker. We've got people for all that. We've got people for audio. We've got multiple people that are talented and they know that area. But the area I wanted to know was getting out there at night, trying to counter the nocturnal tendencies and use thermal. And hammering the vantage points of camp coming in. Hopefully they come in to see the human activity, and that paid off years later.
Well,
So I remember this is, I think 2012. And I was just getting to know you. I was getting to know you through Facebook and those types of things. And we'd never really officially met in person. But I got invited to go to Bumping Lake with Bart Cutino. I was like, this is going to be fantastic. And then I get a phone call and you said, Kipp, plans changed. We're not going to Bumping. We're going to the Sierras. Something's happened there. We're going to go and there's some things happening there, and we're going to go look at what I took on my thermal. And that was my first expedition. And I'm just kind of, basically leading up to the fact that what you were just talking about, trying to do that nocturnal work. And as Bart always says, hits it hard. And Bart's the last guy to go to sleep. He's the guy that gets up, and at 2:00 in the morning when everybody's tired and everybody's going down, Bart's got a thermal imager around his neck and he's walking off. And so just setting the stage, there you are, you're sitting around the campfire, several people, you're up there in the Sierras. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, son, let's go for a walk.
Yeah. That was, talk about my two visuals. I've had these things around me before, but the two visuals, and this one we're talking about the Sierras with the thermal, they were two times that I would have told you, no way is anything going to happen tonight. There was nothing to initiate investigation. There was no responses. There was nothing. And that trip to the Sierras was a quickie, and it was regarding the whole SMEA incident, and that was based on activity that was experienced there less than 2 weeks prior. So that was the impetus to running up there. And at that time, I was all excited because Lighterman, we would go to Bumping and have an expedition with all Washington people. And we do a road trip and hit Oregon, Malala River. We do the whole 9 yards. And we wait all year for this. So I go and I run up there, and it was the second night, totally unexpected. Again, this was around probably about 12:30. The witching hour was actually earlier than when we've had a lot of other activity. And Sean and I, I kind of looked at him, and I'll never forget, because I looked at him, I'm like, should I just hit it? I was up till 5 a.m. the night before. There's nothing going on. And I was like, you know what? He's up here. It's like his second night up here. I said, let's go for a walk. I'm going to break your fear in the dark. Let's go. And so we go. And the crazy part about the whole thing is, looking back now in hindsight, is I had Sean. He's got such a high voice. And he was doing calls off the Eastern Vista. And the funny thing is, in hindsight, looking back, the Squatches, if that's what they were, and I'm almost certain that's what they were already there. So they were already within a minute. So they probably said, what are these guys doing? We talked about getting your hand caught in the cookie jar, And so we didn't know it at the time. We kind of walked around the bend, and I just told them, you know what, stop. I want to just look at the vantage point looking down at camp. And I wasn't as familiar. I'd only been up there before. I was up there with Meldrum, Mayachinsky, Bobo, Wally. This was in 2010. So this is my only second time here. And I didn't have my laptop with me either. That's how thrown together this trip, just run up there. I had Todd Hale with me. I had Roe with me. We had Justin there. About 6 guys total, right? And so I'm up there with Sean. And I'll never forget, I'm looking down and I see what looks like bipeds. And I just remember telling Sean, I'm like, wait a minute. I go, if those aren't the guys, and I'm running audio on my head, I go, those aren't the guys. Those are Squatches. They're walking back and forth. You could see that they're bipeds. And so I'm filming the whole time. The poor guy, Sean, like I said, he was a blogger. He's the greatest guy in the world. I love him. And initially, if I was in his shoes, I would be too. He was terrified because I'm telling him what's going on. And you hear that in the live audio that's recorded. And I'm just reporting it to him. And I'm like telling him, He's like, I'm scared right now. He's holding my weight. I said, listen, we're going to breathe together. We're going to move together. Just do what I do. Just, stay with me. It's fine. And this went on for like a long time because these things would disappear 4 or 5 minutes at a time. And then you don't know if they're coming back. And at that time, it was just record, get as much footage, ask questions later. I knew with the personnel I had, the lack of equipment, what the situation was just get as much footage as possible. And so that's what we did. And at one point, we even had to go back to camp much later and went back and was able to get more footage, including rock throwing. It was just unbelievable. And I can't tell you the feeling the next day of, knowing that there's probably Bigfoots in this footage, and now I'm driving 6.5 hours home. I can't even review. Can you imagine not being able to review the footage?
I was going to ask, how did you feel when you had that encounter, and then after you got the footage? You had to have been just really anxious, especially after getting the footage, to want to see what it was.
Oh, yeah. And just to see, it's funny because, the quality, the onboarding quality that you get on the thermal is a little bit different than what you actually see. It's always going to be a little bit better than when you see it in person. But I knew it wasn't the money shot. I knew, they've got to be, 80, 100, 120 yards away, somewhere in that ballpark. And, we didn't know any of this. And I had to get my ass back as early as possible. That was part of the deal the next day. It didn't matter if I filmed Elvis. I had to be back home by a certain time and with the kids. And then this is where it was crazy because that's when we had to shift gear. There was a guy, Kipp, who I hit it off with immediately. I loved him from the beginning, and it was perfect. He was going to come with me to bumping, and I called him and I said, no, you're going to be because he's tall SOB. I said, you're coming with us, and you're coming to the Sierras, and you're going to be my model, and we're going to do all the recreations. And then I threw Leiterman in charge because we're tied at the hip, and I put him in charge of the investigation. And my instructions for him is just tear the thing. Let's do all the due diligence, and then just try to destroy it every way possible that you can. Try to destroy it. I knew what they were. I was confident of what was there.
And there I was. It was the first time I met everybody, and we were meeting at the store there in. Help me remember what the name of that little town is called.
That was the Bassett's area, Gold Lake, down over
Bassett's. Yeah. So we were right there. We're in front of Bassett's store, and it's like I'm getting to meet all these people in person for the first time. People I've known of and never met. And so there's Robert Leiterman, there's Wally Hersom, there's just all these people. Of course, Bart. And I just remember I'm just trying to take it all in. I'm amazed that I'm getting to be there, and I'm thinking, okay, just play it cool, help where you can, and just be ready. And I just remember standing there and Bart walking up to Robert Leiterman, and he says, all right, Rob, I want you to just take my evidence and I want you to destroy it. And I'm sitting there going, wow, what's he talking about? And then I understood later was, yeah, you know what? If there's something I'm not seeing here, then I want you to show it to me. Yep. This is why you bring in people, and you bring in the people that know what they're doing, and you're being open about it, and you're being forthcoming, and I think that plays into it. So I'm gonna make this statement. Dear Mr. Cutino, we're sorry your Bigfoots were blurry.
Do you want me to give the quick backstory on that?
Yeah.
So when you watch the footage, Poling did such a good job on the doc, and he's a skeptic. I handpicked him. I wanted a skeptic for it, but I didn't realize. You got to remember, there's not a lot of us that had, especially at that time. We're going back now. We're 2012, and until I saw another friend from Washington, until I looked through his therm a little bit later, I didn't realize that I had a little bit of washout. And when I say washout, we're talking 4 or 5% of the image. It's not as clear as it should have been. Not a big deal, but there was some subtle washout. So I was so pissed after. I don't know what I was thinking. I wrote FLIR because I was always in contact with them, because there's always, there's problem here, problem there. They'd always fix it. And I just let them know, because they had already fixed that thermal apparently. And that was the result. And there was a little bit of that washout, and the condescending response would just make you pee your pants. They were just like, dear Bart, we're so sorry your Bigfoots were blurry. So that is what he referred.
And
he'll never let me live it down. I was so hot.
and I'm certain that email got passed around the office, and it was one of those, hey, take a look at this. This guy's upset because his apparently his leprechauns. No, I mean his big feet were actually blurry. So that's always the funny thing, is that as people that believe in Bigfoot, and I've mentioned before, there's you either get the one of two comments from people. One is, oh yeah, I totally believe it, and the other is, okay, you got to be crazy. So it's always funny when you hear all these back and forths among people in the Bigfoot community about, oh, that's crazy. That's a crazy. Oh, they're crazy because they think this. And I'm like, well, you do realize the rest of the universe thinks that we're all crazy.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you can't blame. I mean, any normal rational person on the surface, it's not viable. Nope. We would know about it by now, and that's, and I get that frustration. I get it. I would be there if I didn't see them. I'd be right there. I totally get it. I feel like basically, all the years now being in the field, what I do notice that is interesting is, it's not just about the Bigfoots. I've seen the human dynamic and how people inherently, as humans, unless we're purposely doing something differently, we inherently try to congregate at night. And there's also, for a lot of people, a little bit more of a reactive versus being preemptive. And really, hey, 999 out of 1,000 nights, guess what? I get shut out. I get years and there's nothing, but it's really, if you're really trying to solve this, I mean, it's not going to always be fine, and it's times, and once you've seen them, this is the other thing. Growing up in the first couple of years getting out, and Tate, you could relate to this too, it was just good enough just to be out with the guys and be out there and do what you always loved to do, and you felt free and everything. But then once you see them, and then you see how easily I could have missed them, it makes it hard to and this, Kipp. I mean, I love being out, but it makes it hard. You could tell, like, I'm not always relaxed. Like, I've never, it's the only time I really smoke cigarettes anymore is when I'm on the expeditions. When I'm in the field, I'm just in a different place. And it's like, I know that this could happen in a 2-second period over a night, and we would never know it was there, and so yeah, it just keeps your motor going full time, and it becomes, I don't want to say like a business, because I've kept all business out of anything profit wise out of Bigfoot. What I mean by a business is being that you have to be attentive like a business, versus where it was just good enough to be there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like you're saying,
it does.
When you get started, it's fun and games, but when you get more invested in it, you become a little more serious. Not to say that it's totally business that you're trying to make money, just become more serious with what you're doing.
Exactly. You see that it's like, holy shit, like we can, like, these things are not even real. Like we have the ability, like we can document these. Like we could actually, this can happen. Like, and once you know that, then there's never a night. I don't care where I'm at. I mean, there's never a night where that thermal's not going to be around my neck. Be ready.
I do this every time I go anywhere now. I have a thermal with me. I don't care where it is.
Boy. Yep. Good. You should.
I always take it.
Well, I'd say one of the things to take note of too is the fact that not a knock on anybody or a knock on anything, but when Bart had his thermal sighting, the last place that he went with his evidence was onto social media. So I think that there goes a lot. I think I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, just so you know, the last place that I would ever go if I had something where I actually had something of actual value that I thought was an interesting piece of evidence, I said, there's a handful of people that I would contact, and just so you know, Facebook would not be one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I feel like even if you knew what you got, because I mean, you were there, and even if there was other people there that could back your story, it's not going to do much on YouTube or Facebook, because there's so much, fake footage out there that people are just going to critique it and say it's not real anyway. So it's kind of in my opinion, it's a dead end to put it on social media, period.
Yeah, we did it. It was interesting. And Kipp, you might remember this, like for a couple weeks, you remember how, like, what a mess I was of pulling my hair out because there was two things going on. People knew about it and were talking about it. And I felt naked because I believe in that. Like, I believe in it's got to be appropriately documented, scientific principles. There has to be 100% transparency, or you can wipe your ass with it. And so for a couple weeks, think about this. Like, I didn't know exactly where they were standing going back and forth. I didn't know how tall they were. You know what I mean? And I remember too, I showed for Mike at the Santa Cruz Museum. I did it as a favor to him. And I felt like I was up there wearing no clothes, showing that footage. And I told him I did it for him, but I would never do it again. And people saw it, whatever, they know me, great, whatever. But and then when we did document it, this also taught me something else. Everyone always, complained about the lack of documentation. But then when we did get it out there was a lot of people absolutely who appreciated it and used it as an example. But there was a lot that weren't willing to ever read through the material because there was we put out, what was it, Kipp? It was the 17-minute documentary. You had the 45-minute or so lot, like as it was happening in real time with the audio. Then you had someone else. This is really cool. Someone took the footage and they made it black hot. I always use white hot. That's just my preference. They made it black hot, and you look like you're watching. They actually look like little Bigfoots walking back and forth, and it looks like you're watching footage from like 1958. Just barely a hint of color. It's pretty interesting. And someone did that, and they took 5 minutes of all the continuous action. Plus, then we had 11 recreation videos. So the whole process is out there, full transparent, 4 analysis reports. It was so overkill that it was almost overwhelming that everyone's just like, okay, I'm not going into all that shit. But it taught me that too as well. Then people would ask the same question. It's all there. It's all documented. It's in the report. You point them there. And they'd want you to keep answering it for them, And it really taught me that people don't like to do a lot of due diligence.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, that's, yeah.
I was going to ask you, because you said people don't like doing due diligence. Do you think the reason a lot of people are skeptic is because it's easier for them to write it off than to do research and do more homework on the subject?
No, I think people collectively, and I'm certainly not saying everybody, because there's areas that I'm lazy, but I think people are collectively, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's news, what's going on in the world, politics, whatever it is, they may feel strongly about something, but to go through and do all that due diligence to get to the truth of something, sometimes it's a lot of mental work, and a lot of people just aren't willing to do it. They'd rather be told by someone they think they can trust, yes, no, that was great, or, yes, that was fine, or yes, that's the truth. And my thing is just advise you to every source, and you dig, you wait until you get the truth.
Yeah.
And and that's, yeah.
I think one of the things that I learned from that whole experience was just the idea that all that due diligence does pay off. But then the other part of that was how many people had opinions that weren't there. And so,
yeah.
What I would constantly hear would be, oh, well, that was just those guys around the campfire.
right.
Somehow I would say, I'm sorry, but you weren't there. I've been there. I was a part of the recreation. And so there's this rush towards discounting people's evidence. And I guess if they're not doing the due diligence, it's a lot easier to do, to discount it. But when you've done your due diligence and you've had people there, and like you said, that 100% transparency, everything about the Sierra thermal footage that Bart's taken, everything that we're discussing here tonight, folks, is available on the internet. It's there. And if you can't find it, you can find somebody who can get it to you. So
I'll get it and put it in the description, and I'll put a link to it.
Oh, cool.
And so, and I, and I always appreciate, and I do think that it adds to credibility. And I'll definitely say I'll be one of the first people, or not one of the first people. I would definitely count Bart Cutino is a person that adds to the credibility of the field. People like himself, people like Cliff Barrickman, people like I think Derek Randalls falls into that. I think John Kirk definitely falls into that. Bobo definitely. There's just some people that. Oh, Leiterman he's synonymous for that too. But these are all people that are that don't think that everything that goes bump in the night is a Bigfoot. And I think that I think you were the one, Bart, that kind of introduced me more, and I think about it a lot more as use the term Occam's razor.
Yeah. Definitely.
Which, for those that don't understand what Occam's razor is, what is that, Bart?
I want to hear your definition of it. No, in general, it's essentially, I'm trying to think of the best terminology for it, but the most likely answer in the scenario is probably the one that's going to be correct. It's somewhere along those lines if you define it. And
if a pine cone falls out of the sky, Occam's razor would say it probably fell out of the tree that's above you. It may or may not have been a Bigfoot that threw it, but if you throw it coming through the air, arching through the air, then maybe it's not falling out of the tree. So that's not the most, but obviously the most obvious thing would be a pine cone just fell on me. It probably fell out of a tree. It probably wasn't a Bigfoot or an alien gray tossing it out of a spaceship.
Exactly.
I kind of all right.
Yep.
So
you got to look for every answer. And sometimes Occam's razor works against you. Some people thought, the Sierras. Like you just said, it was the most logical answer is just the guys, and somehow he just filmed the guys, and there's a mix-up or whatever. And it's like, well, there's also another problem. I had a bunch of hobbits with me on that trip, and I'm only 6 foot tall. I'm not that tall myself. I lost an inch in my back surgeries. And Kipp, the subjects that are walking, the stationary subject is in the ballpark of 7 feet. The two subjects that are walking back and forth are a little bit wider and bigger than Kipp. They're clearly not wearing any clothing and are a little taller than Kipp. I didn't have Kipp with me that night. I wish I did. I'd do anything if I had him that night with me. But like I said, I was the tallest at 6 foot, and you look, it was 58% waxing moon, but it looked like heavier tree cover that night, the way the moon was set. And it just, like I said, it was just one of those nights, though, you just would never think anything happened. You always think, your best chance is going to be if you're solo, if you're by yourself, or it's me and Bobo, or it's just me. But I got to be honest. I mean, I wish I could say going and chasing these things down, it's, we still do it. Don't get me wrong. But the two ways, the two times I had visuals, the remarkable thing for me, my personal perspective, are the consistencies that I was basically trying to piss them off and elicit a response over a course of more than 24 hours. And that they came in eventually quietly, nothing to initiate investigation, watching from the vantage point. Cliff likes to say the sniper position. I said the same thing. It's almost military. Usually the biggest tree will be in play. They were actually 30. We didn't know this at the time, but they were 35 yards.
Good God.
From my guy. One of them sleeping and two of them sitting there. And all they saw were some dark silhouettes filling the tree gaps. They didn't know until I walked back to camp, and then they all fell on the floor. That there was really something there. And it was based on where the small fire was. It was a wall of darkness where that 35 yards was. I mean, they're just masters of light and hammering that advantage point. I just think it's inherent in them.
So what do you think are the odds? I've often thought about this. How many times have we been sitting in Louse Camp? It's such a neat place.
Yeah.
It's down there in the bottom. There's a lot of creek noise, but right across the creek on that Razor Ridge,
yep,
there's some of those sniper vantage points. I'm just wondering, how many times have we been there where something was up on that ridge top and just kind of watching, just because, wow, look at all that stuff going on. There's noise.
Yeah. I mean, it's and there's such a and that Louse Camp. What's interesting about that you just said is I've been there a million times, as you guys know, all through that whole drainage. And the only time we did have activity was in 2007, and it was in Laos, where I heard what sounded like a bipedal subject come in. Leiterman and myself were actually, we were dug in like ticks on the ground, right on the T as you pull into the round there at Laos. And this thing walked into the middle of that little island of trees and walked out. You just hear the gravel. We opened the roads. For that. And there was no one back there. This is like May. And Bobo and Jamie Jackson, good friend of ours from Washington, he was also there the night of my sighting in Washington. They had, in the moonlight, they had saw a dark, about 6 foot my height. They thought it was me crossing the road. And they had no idea we were listening to the thing the whole time. So that was kind of cool. And it wasn't like a great sighting for them. They just saw basically the silhouette, cross very quickly. But they were convinced it was me. And I said, Letterman and I we're down here listening. So, but that was it in that whole trip. I've never had anything else happen. I think it's an amazing habitat. I just don't know if it's as, and it's viable. I mean, there's still a lot of activity in and around there, but I just wonder how much. It's not a place that I would go. It's a place I'd go with you guys anytime and do some of the social stuff or just go, but it's not a place like if I'm going like, I'm down to my last 5 spots where we go.
No, yeah. No. I think my first time there, I could have swore I had something come around our camp. And I just I did this idea, or it's not an idea, but somebody told me you should have your audio recording all night. So I did that. Something totally did walk around our tent because I heard it, and then it's really faint. It's like behind that white noise of the creek, so it's faint. So you have to listen to it. But I got some audio of something for sure. But that's really about all the stuff that I ever had there happened to me.
Was that? Oh, really?
Yeah. I think the draw obviously of Bluff Creek and the Louse Camp is the historic aspect, and obviously the big draw for the Bluff Creek project is to basically rediscover the site, but then knowing that we have the site, knowing that there are objects and things that are there that can still be seen from the film, and hopefully maybe being able to obtain some more evidence if there is such a thing that can be done with a 50-year-old film. So I think that's the major draw. I think the hope is, like you said, Bart, I think the sum it up is, you're not going to have an experience, you're not going to find evidence unless you go out and you go somewhere.
Right.
So
right.
Just sitting at home, and there's a lot of sitting in their basement playing on Facebook, Bigfooters.
Playing
so
Flappy Birds on your iPhone.
That's right. So Bart, I got to ask.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Tate.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, speaking of Bluff Creek, I don't want to say the exact area, but I think it was a bachelor party with you, Bart, and Robert was there. Kipp, were you there? I can't remember.
No,
I wasn't.
My bachelor party for Married to Kim. Yeah, that was in 2009, about 15 miles as the crow flies, in an area that would be in probably my top 10. Yeah, that was great. We had everybody there. Bo, Cliff, Randall. I mean, everybody was there. That was a fun. We did like a 9-nighter that night, that trip, and nothing happened the whole time. I mean, we had an amazing time, but at the last night, I finally ran out of gas after all those days, and I was the first one to crash on the last night. And I had my cousin from here. I can't believe I made him go up for 9 nights, but he had a great time. He loves all the guys, and we got woken up. Lighterman, they came in, and the knocking was just stopping, but there was Wally had recorded 65 knocks right behind the mini creek uphill, and it was in a 5-minute period. And the knocks they kind of reverberated throughout the valley, and remarkably, what they sounded like, they weren't deer huffs, but they sounded like they could be deer huffs. But there's no deers that huff 65 times in an hour, But that was the sound, and it was interesting. I saw the recording. I don't know. It almost sounded like something was just like, been knocking for 9 days. All of a sudden, something just decided to just, in frustration, knock back. But there was, to be fair, there was another vehicle. There's some people that they go there periodically. Some of the natives go there. And there was another vehicle that someone, I think that they had stayed overnight. I don't think they were in the vicinity, and it probably wasn't them. But there was another vehicle that had come in and actually stayed. So,
it's one of those things.
Yeah, it was.
So, what were you going to say, Kipp? I interrupted you before you were going to say something.
No, that's okay. I was just I'm just always curious. Bart, has there ever been a time when you've actually been afraid?
Yes, the first expedition I ever went on, I was scared of my own shadow. To be honest with you, I was scared to go retrieve a camera from maybe 15 feet away in the pitch dark, and then we were there with Bo and the realization hit me up for the next round. I was like, if I want to do this, and I love this, and I want to do this, I'm not going to do this half-assed. And so the first thing, and it's actually, I give Bobo a lot of credit, is shedding your fear of the dark, learning how to walk and navigate at night through the dark. And you can do it. I mean, you can do it. It's a little harder actually with thermal because of your perception from all the light that's coming off the thermal that you're looking through the lens. And it messes up your night vision temporarily, at least for 45 seconds. So it's not easy, but you kind of learn how to navigate, be quiet through the night, and we try to use no light. And that's we're not trying to be a descent, be a hunter and fool anybody or whatever. That's not what it is. My theory is I'm in there to try to draw up activity and, piss them off. And I want to be something different. They know 99% of us need the benefit of a light source to negotiate the forest at night, right? So who are these people? It's only a few of us idiots that walk around with no light. And I think it draws attention. I think it pisses them off, and I think they want to know why. And I think they mess with you if they're lucky enough to have one there.
Well, I think they think you're probably dumb enough that you're walking around with no lights, that if they mess with you, they might get away with it a lot easier than they think. Than they give us credit for.
Yeah. Yeah, there could be some truth to that. So, yeah.
It's another way of fooling them, I guess.
Yeah, kind of maybe a little bit of a reverse psychology. Well, plus you think, too, they're not going to be used to someone peeling off from the crowd at night and then not use a light source. I mean, you know what I mean? I think that's something that they can always bank on, come in and watch human activity, and they're usually not going to run into someone walking around the middle of the forest with no lights. And, we're usually sticking to roads, trails. Sometimes we're off, or we'll hunker down or create a blind, or we do all kinds of things. Yeah. But it's just remarkable, though. I think back and I think, God, I wish I could make it sound so much more cavalier. But the two times that I saw them, it was just the circumstances, the sun, the moon. I would never guess those would have been timed. I would have been wrong. I would have never guessed that we would have had activities those nights. I look back and it just blows me.
Well, like the first time I got thermal footage of one time, and it was like, it's kind of like that time that you just it's surreal that you're meeting these people and you don't think anything's going to happen. You kind of go out there and you just like, oh, you can try, but I'm not expecting anything. And then you get something when you're totally not expecting it. And that's what happened with me. And it blew my mind. Like my heart was pounding and I was excited and scared at the same time. Like I couldn't wait to see what I got. But that totally makes sense.
Well, your shoe, Tate, it was interesting because I was driving through when I was in SoCal. I mean, I'm down there a lot, business and seeing friends. And yeah, I think I know exactly the general area of where you were. It's fascinating. And there's been a history.
So I met Matt Moneymaker there for the first time. I tweeted Cliff. I was like, hey, where should I go in Southern California? And literally where he recommended was like an hour or something from my house. So I would drive that to that place a lot. And then I took a friend of mine there the day we met Matt because we were looking around other places that a guy got footage of one off the 101 going down the Grapevine. Then a lady from like the 70s saw one over by Pyramid Lake.
Yeah, I know where that is. Oh, yeah.
Where I got my footage, I mean, again, it's not great. I don't want to put it on social media because they're going to be like, oh, it's this or that, or they don't believe it. So I didn't post it anywhere. But the circumstances and everything that I know personally, like about these things, I believe it was a Bigfoot what I got on thermal. But
it definitely looked bipedal. I remember seeing it. I remember seeing the footage.
It sucked because my friend was with me. He was like, dude, it disappeared. So it was still standing there when I turned the camera away because I'm not. Bart, you can probably tell everybody that if you're not used to thermals, it's really different, like you said before, when you're looking through one versus when you see the footage that you got later when you like go on a computer.
You just nailed it. It's, you know what it is? It's with the experience with them. What it is it's being able to discriminate what you see, rule things out quickly. You know what I mean? You kind of know what you're looking at. There's a reason why, like, some people, the first time they have a thermal, you know, they think that they see something, and it's totally understandable because it's a whole new world that you need to learn. You learn to see through. You know, I get fooled temporarily. You know, it happens.
Yeah. Well, like when I got mine, I didn't see anything, and it wasn't until I downloaded it on the computer that I saw something, I was like, no way. But I knew something was there when we were filming it, but I didn't see it on the therm. So I mean,
yeah,
that's why I was kind of just going off what my friend was saying.
Yeah, it was interesting. I remember looking at it.
Thermals are tricky, man.
Yeah, they are, but the quality is getting better and better. And you know what? I always say to most people who aren't used to looking at it, they don't understand yet that it's actually more the judge and the jury than anything that we can acquire in color. With technology today, you can almost make the argument that anyone can manipulate almost anything.
Yeah.
But on thermal, you know, it is what you see. If you're within that distance threshold, that closer distance threshold, 50, 60 yards, and it's good quality of good res, I mean, you will see the clothing. You will see the heat deviations. You will see what it is. It will be exposed for what it is, unless it's you know, it's undercover. I mean, we can't see through vegetation, or if it's partially covered. Yeah, I mean, but in the clear, you will see and know what it is. It's beyond that. Once we start getting about 110, 130 yards, and it varies, different temperatures, humidity. But once you get past that, you would see that somebody's a biped or a quadruped. You'd see the difference, but you wouldn't be able to distinguish if it's a clothed individual, a Bigfoot. You wouldn't see it from 130, 140 yards. You wouldn't be able to tell. It just looked like a biped.
Yeah, mine was like at the same distance that you got yours in the Sierras. Was about 100 yards or something.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. From looking at it,
because it was, you could see it, but it wasn't enough to really distinguish. But there's a whole story I don't want to go into later because this is about you, Bart, not me.
No, but it was interesting. I remember. I think you showed me when we went and filmed the finale for Finding Bigfoot. Is when you
yeah. That's right, I did.
Well, you know what's interesting about the technology, for instance, you know, when you were talking about your bumping sighting and where the technology was with your thermal imager device and the inability to record. Fast forward to 2012 and your Sierra footage, and now even since then, you know, here we're in 2020, and I think it's been probably 3 years since I purchased my first, you know, the FLIR Scout TK, you know, the
Scout, yeah,
you know, so that's within reach. That's a $600 piece of equipment. That price will come down eventually. You know, the prices will come down on the technology that you're using right now, and there will be something better. So it seems like the ability to have that kind of technology is more within the grasp of everybody who wants to get out there. And so do you think that we're going to see, I don't know, better evidence maybe come about from just more people in the woods with this kind of technology, and hopefully they know how to use it?
Yeah, yes and no. I think part of it is, I think exactly what you're saying. We were on that trajectory that they were going to be low. You know, they were starting to get lower and lower cost. The element that kind of comes in now and may change that is there's a high demand for thermal based on this whole COVID-19 situation, because they're different thermals they want to use for possibly for temperature, seeing people's temperature, that type of thing. So all of a sudden, you know, there's a high demand in that industry. I'm not positive how much it's going to affect the pricing there. But the other element is it's really, I mean, you think about it. Let's just say, we'll put it this way. Let's just say those 2 nights that I saw, I just wasn't, for whatever reason, just wasn't paying attention, didn't do, you know, whatever. I didn't see them, right? then I would be just telling you after 17 years, yeah, I've had thermal. Hundreds of hours. Thousands of hours, and have never, I would have never, I would be dead empty. I would just have, some great knock stories to tell you. I would tell you, about possibly being surrounded and stuff happening, great vocals, that type of stuff. Well, it wouldn't make me a knower at this point. Absolutely not. So I'm that close to not knowing. When you look at it, you flip it the other way. And then, like I said, a lot of people are inherently, they're more reactive rather than preemptive. And if you do that with thermal, you're not going to be successful, most likely. It's just, you can't wait till the branches start breaking and there's a presence and then start looking around. You can, but I'm just saying it's being ready. It's being ready, and it's not fun. And sometimes
if you're being pre-prepared, it's better that way, because you're kind of already waiting to expect something, but you kind of want to be just scanning around. That's why I do, when I go camping, I do some scans and stuff, and I kind of keep my eyes open and ears,
Oh, absolutely.
Just in case something happens.
And you want to pick camps, Tate. You want to pick camps that are, you want to be approachable. You want to be able to give them the window, of coming in to see you and have that you're conceding that vantage point to them as if you're just some dummy camper or whatever. But the difference is no, we've got the technology.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. One of my favorite guys to watch is Les Stroud, honestly. And the whole Survivor Man thing he did, I really like that. And he does a whole lot of things where he puts himself in a vulnerable position camping. And that's why I like Louse Camp a lot, because it's kind of in that vulnerable position, because a lot of predators have the higher ground and you're kind of in that bowl area, so they feel more they feel braver to approach you when they have a better advantage than you do.
It seems like
definitely.
Seems like the combination that a lot of times I know that you and Leiterman go out into the woods with you at the Therm and with Rob with the Gen 3 night scope, kind of a good kind of complement each other in a way.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because you've got the night vision. You need ambient light. The thermal will see in pitch black, but sometimes I got to tell you, when there's enough ambient light, sometimes night vintage looks great, man. Depends. You got a good quality night vision and the light is right. It's great. The only difference too is in the long term, the shelf life. I would recommend anyone get thermal, but night vision, to have that in your arsenal is a great thing. It does come in handy by far. Yeah. We like mixing and matching like that. Definitely.
I go out a lot with Robert, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, I use the night vision," and then Bart uses the FLIR, and we're like a really good team with that.
Yeah, I would say Leiterman has taught me more, and I've had so many great mentors in this field, and Leiterman, he really taught me he taught me how to really navigate and negotiate the wilderness. I've learned so much from him. I'm so grateful. He was one of the first best friends I had in this field, and I know you guys feel the same way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's unbelievable.
Well, there's one thing that I like to contribute, and when we're out doing our thing, and that is I'm there to sample anything that Bart is cooking. So I've learned several things from Bart. Number one, if you burn the garlic, you ruin the sauce. Don't scorch the garlic. Don't do it.
Attaboy.
One thing you guys will learn from
so
me
I always remember that.
One thing you guys will learn from me is if I need gas, I might ask you for some gas.
Yes, I remember that. I do.
No, but
so that's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kipp.
No, I'm just mentioning how when you're on an expedition somewhere and you're in the middle of absolute nowhere and it's freezing cold because it's February and you've just come back in and it's 1 a.m. and Bart's working on his vodka pasta sauce with the right pasta, and by the time it comes out, and it's 2:30 in the morning, and you're sitting around a campfire, and you're eating the most amazing meal that you've ever had, and you're in the redwoods. Not to mention in the morning when you get, I have the tendency to I throw a frying pan, I throw a couple of eggs, throw some sausage and bacon, blah, blah, blah. Here comes Bart. He's going to make the perfect breakfast burritos that you've ever had. And I will tell you, he's correct. And they are. I'm thinking, how can you take something like a breakfast burrito and really make it that good? Well, I'll tell you, Bart can do it. So,
thank you. And your pizza idea worked out great last year, buddy. That was wow. We chowed. That was great. Your little
that's right.
An attachment. Oh man, that was perfect.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. We were in the Sierras again, and it was a little cold, if I recall.
Yeah. What was that, last October?
I
think
it was. That's right. Yeah. And I actually had my my shift pod, and I had the buddy heater inside there, and oh my gosh, turning that on in the mornings was really nice. It actually saved my bacon.
You guys are all like Gordon Ramsay out camping. I'm just more like your local Taco Bell chef. I'm all just cooking hot dogs and mustard, and you guys are like, let's make some spaghetti with vodka and this and that. I'm like, God, I'm lost.
I just look at it as like, why not? And the food tastes like, you know what it is? Psychologically, we shouldn't be eating that good where we're out there. So it makes us, we enjoy the food that much more. It like tastes twice as good.
Dude, I agree with that. Like, so I like eggs. Like I do scrambled eggs, but it's not necessarily my favorite thing to eat at home. But when I'm camping, that's like the best thing in the world.
Oh yeah, I bet. Oh yeah, it's night and day.
It's weird.
It always tastes better out there. And now that and when I retire, and I actually hopefully have the fifth wheel some places, but I do have an oven, and so one of the things that I've actually been dreaming about is being out there, expedition, people are camping, and Bart makes his ultimate chocolate chip cookies that I've never had.
Oh yeah. We got to do those. My wife's asking for them too, so we got to do that again.
Awesome.
That's hilarious. Hey Bart, so I was wanting to say, you said you at first, like when you kind of got into the whole Bigfoot thing, going out at night, you're really timid, but you said Robert kind of helped you in some ways, right? Or just in Bobo too.
It was that first expedition. I think I remember back. I was thinking about it today. It's funny because I was cleaning the garage and I found some old pictures. And, it was really, I felt like it blended in pretty quick with everybody. And what was cool is my cousin Jason from back home had come up with me, the one that was with me at Fresno State. And he has a little bit of a passive interest, enough to be fascinated. And so he came and, I felt by the time I was out the second time, it was just like, it was second nature already. It was just like there was a comfort. It was like there was a natural, like it was a fit. It was just something like, I think as a kid, there always was that, romanticized part with, I think there's some truth to that. Like people that are into Bigfoot, there's something psychological maybe but regardless of what it is or it isn't, like I said, once you've seen them, you don't give a shit what anyone says. I know what I'm looking for. And you know what I mean by that. I know there's something there that I'm looking for. Yeah. And that's how I look at it.
I totally agree with you. I was like, I remember.
And I. Go ahead, Tate. Sorry.
I remember my first time camping out in Bluff Creek. I was with my dad, but the first time I actually went Bigfooting was with Robert up Onion Lake.
Oh, awesome!
And I was kind of like scared at first. I'm still getting over that fear. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's one thing going like Bigfooting in your backyard. Like say you live, let's just say like me, I live in Des Moines. I can go 20 minutes to like a wooded area that's probably a couple miles wide. That's one thing. But you go into like an area that you're in the middle of nowhere, that's completely different. So I think Robert is a really good person to have with you to kind of get you over that fear of the dark, and Bobo, and you.
Yeah, I got to say, thank you. I got to say, Bobo was also too. I mean, no doubt. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, those two I've probably spent the most field nights with the last 17 years, either individually or together, all three of us, whatever. But Bo and I've gone some places at night. Like people, are these guys crazy? Are these guys absolutely crazy? Like sometimes I look back and I go, oh my God, what were we thinking? I mean, and he used to walk around. No thermal, nothing and flip-flops. I mean, he used to go, there's not even shoes. He did not care. I mean, he's Bobo. Well, we love
it's all that pop, man. That'll make you do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Bart, what was your first time in the forest bigfooting? Like, obviously you weren't used to the dark. You said, what was the feelings that you had, and then trying to look for these things? You definitely weren't in your element. What feelings were you having at that time?
I remember being very excited. I've always had reasonable expectations, as I expected anything was going to happen on the first day. It was more or less of just breaking the ice and getting my ass out there. And then it was more, first it was just that was the goal. And then the relationships, it became, it kind of changed over we had all these great relationships with these guys and going out, and I mean, it was the best. But to answer your question, that first trip, we didn't do a lot of solo hiking and stuff. I remember there was a lot. Moneymaker had everybody driving a lot, drove everybody nuts. And Bald Hills, I mean, we drove and drove and drove, but I got to see and experience, so much. And, like I said, meet a lot of the big players, and it just kind of set the tone for everything moving forward, and was a very fulfilling experience, and just made you want to do more. And that you could, Moneymaker always told me that from the beginning. I mean, we've always hit it off, and he always pushed me, is that, no, you can do some things in this field. You need to, it's all, God, he feels that. Wow. And he's been my God, he was my best man. I mean, he's been a great friend ever since. I know he's a beauty, but I love him to death, and I give him a lot of credit. He taught me a lot as well. He really did.
I'm still new in the field, and I still have a lot to learn from you, Bart. I have never been out in the field with you yet, and I'm looking forward to that night.
Oh, we got to do it. Yeah, we'll get out together.
But I still have a lot to learn from you and Robert, and Bobo and Cliff has helped me out a lot, and so has Matt. Everybody that I've met, and I'm really grateful for. So thank you guys.
Yeah, no, anytime. We love being out with you, and we'll get some opportunities hopefully soon. Depending on we're all kind of living our lives on a minute to minute basis right now.
Yeah.
But we know, eventually we'll be getting out there soon. Might even join you guys in the summer. I'm hoping the early summer.
I'll be out there the whole month, man. We'll be out there, so just come on by.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance I'll be able to sneak up there.
So Bart, there's all these other places that you could go. The Sierras are a big one, bumping, the Redwoods, those types of places. But if money's no object, and there's a place that you'd like to go, that you'd like to spend time, if time wasn't an object, where would you go, and how long would you stay there, and what kind of places would you think that, looking at the whole Western United States or wherever in the United States, where would you want to go bigfooting?
Money's not an object for this. This is kind of
money's not an object.
Utopian.
Time isn't an object. You've got all the time. You've got all the money. What are you going to do?
Handpick about 7 or 8 of the guys. Rent out a boat, big boat, and work the southeast Alaskan islands. Ooh. And therm the shorelines. Get in as close as we can and therm those islands left and right. All that thousands and thousands of miles of coastline. When I went on that, it's funny. I went on that cruise in 2017. This is the first time I'd actually been up there that far. I've always Washington, California, Oregon, Washington is where I spend predominantly my time. And I was just mesmerized by the southeast Alaskan islands. I mean, just not only just the beauty, but the opportunity, the resources. You absolutely, and there's huge history, and there's no people. I mean, it's a joke. You look at Powell Island, Prince of Wales. It's got 4,000 people. It's 2.5 times the size of Maui, which, when it has all the tourists there, has 500,000 people. I mean, it's just, when you think about it, it's unbelievable how vast. And I think the opportunity there, being able to with high quality stuff, being able to hit that shoreline, getting kind of close enough over a course of time, I think we'd have some success. It would just depend on how good the equipment is and how close we are too, as well. Because like I said, it's a biped 500 feet away, and the quality's not gonna mean anything, so it's got to be effective. But also, a lot of these islands, they haven't even done amphibian studies on a lot of these islands. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. And that's like 1% of Alaska, by the way, which is just insane when you think about it and you see it in person and how vast. I was blown away.
Well, that Todd Neese and his group did that Operation Sea Monkey, which,
yeah, a couple of years ago they did.
And that,
that's right. I remember that Todd went.
And you're looking at a fairly small snippet of time, and so you're trying to maximize the opportunity. But certainly, money no object, time no object. You've got a team of people. You've got several boats. You've got kind of a plan. You start maybe in the spring, and then you start working your way around towards maybe following the salmon runs or whatever it might be. That would be really fascinating to see.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's
awesome.
It's unbelievable. We'll get a chance. We'll do it. It's on the bucket list. You'll be on that boat, Kipp.
Okay. I would love that. I'm still debating on retirement and whatnot, but at this point, still working, still gotta earn a living. But we're coming.
You're getting there. You're close.
We're getting there. Well, we're coming up on just a little over an hour, and Bart, we'll let you. Anything else you'd like to add before we call it a night?
No, just everybody out there, just keep plugging away. This is something this can be done. This can be done, but it's going to take discipline. It's going to take a lot of cooperation. It's going to put people, just like any business, people should be working it to what their strengths are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And know enough to be dangerous everywhere else, so you don't fall off a cliff. And you understand your environment, which is the most important thing in research. You understand the habitat you're researching. But yeah, that would be my advice. And I'm not going to stop until it's done. I know what I've seen, and I'm going until it's done.
Nice. Well, I, for one, really, that was just a great interview, and really appreciate you taking the time out of your Sunday to talk with Tate and I. And I'll be honest, I've been really looking forward to this one because I know, again, you're one of my best friends. You're absolutely generous to a fault. You're just a beautiful human being, beautiful family. You're just a good person, and you're a heck of a lot of fun to be out in the woods with. So I always enjoy my time. So Bart, thank you very much, and I'll bump it off over to Tate and let Tate go ahead and end it for everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Bart, thank you again for coming on. It was a great pleasure. And we enjoyed talking to you as much as listening to you, man.
No, anytime. I'm honored to be on with you guys. Anytime. It's fun to do these podcasts again. You do a lot of them, and then, not as much the last 3 or 4 years. Just, life just goes. But thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, hopefully we can have you on again. So until next week, we're the Bluff Creek Project Podcast.